Good evening, Professor. In this case, I will present about the pharmaceutical industry. So, in first, I will talk about the industry competitors. So, the pharmaceutical industry in the US has nearly 5,000 new drugs per year in the market, with about 810,000 people working for them. So, the gross revenue the last year was more than $374 billion. Also, the 20 largest companies in the industry represent 33% of the market with $275.30 billion. So, it is a monopolistic competition model, the pharmaceutical industry, because there is many competitors in the industry with just a little difference from percentage in percentage from the first to the second and the third. Also, this industry has many barriers to entry and exit of the market. And in the case of Actavis, the company that we are presenting, is the 11th place in the last year with $13.8 billion with revenues. Also, the potential entrance into this pharmaceutical industry is many barriers to entry and exit of the industry. Many firms enter in the manufacturing of generic firms. So, in this case, there is one of the barriers to enter this industry is the patents. So that is the reason that companies prefer to enter the pharmaceutical industry just with generic drugs, just to manufacture generic drugs, because you can manufacture any drug. You can companies take some old formulas to make new pills. Also, one barrier for new firms are the patents are licenses to produce some drugs. That I said before, the most of the biggest companies in the market, they has they have a lot of patients, so they must to create these drugs. Also, in the United States government does not establish any barrier to entry of new firms, but new firms must to respect just all of the patents, because if they don't respect these patents and copy one of the pills or they copy the drugs, the government will tell them that they need to exit the market. Also, it is more predominant exit of firms than entry of new firms in this industry, because most of the biggest company has a strategic barriers like patents, and also has barriers like low cost to manufacture these drugs. Then, about substitutes and complement goods of service, we need to say that there is just a few drugs just a few substitutes for specific drugs, because there is some drugs that they need prescription to buy them. Also, there are no substitute for prescription drugs. The principal substitute for Actavis products is the inorapil. So, Actavis is a manufacturer of drugs for the heart attacks, to prevent heart attacks or to control the blood pressure. Also, the best complement got for Actavis is the blood pressure monitor. So, like some of the patients, doctors say that they need to control the blood pressure like for months, for or maybe for one time per day. Next, the bargaining power of suppliers. Suppliers have very low bargaining power. some of the suppliers haven't negotiated with the manufacturers because most of the suppliers provide subsidies to suppliers, especially organic chemical company. Government, in the case of the US government, in some cases for a specific medicines, they provided for money, they give money for the organic chemical companies to provide all the components of the drugs with the lowest price as possible, because the government have some entities that they give free medicine for patients. Also, some suppliers, like I said before, some suppliers negotiate prices with the government, and also the fast switching of supplier in search of lower price. If some of the suppliers didn't receive any money, they negotiate with the biggest company or with all the companies in this market, and then if the companies find a new supplier with a low price, they just switch them and they change really fast to the another supplier. So finally, the bargaining power of buyers. The consumer has no choice but to buy what doctors say. The patients buy drugs at price already established by firms. So, in the case of the medicine that needs to prescription of the doctor, the people just must to buy it because doctor thinks that it's the best for the patients, and if they don't buy this specific medicine, they can die. Also, people who use generic drugs can only compare prices. Also, for example, for a headache or a stomachache, people goes to one supermarket or one store like CVS or like Walmart to buy this type of medicine. So they just can compare prices. They can buy the lowest prices drug because they can negotiate the price with the company. The company just they put the price and people must buy it also. And finally, Actavis customers have not a choice for change of a generic drug. That I said before, just people who has prescription drugs, they need to buy, they must to buy because they can die and they can't change for a generic drug. In the case of Actavis, they just can change for a generic drug in the case of inhalable because some doctors say that they prescribe this specific medicine or they prescribe a generic medicine. So, thank you.